Okay, all right. So, because initially I want to ask also about BNPL, whether this model would also be good if it's to be adapted by micro, small, and medium enterprises for digital financing as well. But I think to some extent you have answered the question. It's the regulation. It's important to have regulation before we can comfortably accept BNPL as a model for the lending. Okay, my next question would be going back to digital lending, because when we talk about digital lending, we are making financing more accessible, especially to the segment who are underserved and unbankable, like for micro, small, and medium enterprises. But I just want to understand, what does it mean when this financing become more accessible for this segment for them?
You are talking about if the digital lending becomes mainstream, what will happen?
Yeah.
What will happen to the consumer or to the players?
To the maybe a little bit of both.
Okay.
To the consumer and to the players. Yeah.
See, first of all, we need to understand why digital lending will be successful or why digital lending is needed, right? And we talked about this in the beginning of our discussion, Amirul. See, in finance, it's always the two things which drives any product or services is the cost to obtain or the return which you get on the investment, and the time taken to get the services, right? So it's the time and cost efficiency of the product or the services which you are looking at. So why digital lending would have been popular? First of all, you are looking into digital lending because you are trying to overcome the challenges of the traditional channel, right? Because of the collateral or because of the documentation, having a credit history. So it always strives to promote people who have a good credit history or have a good collateral, and you are excluding the people who are not part of the formal channels. So, and the second thing is that sometimes it takes too much of time in order to obtain, and maybe after submitting all the documents also you will not be successful because you might be considered that, you know, this can be an innovative idea, but we do not know whether it will be successful or not, and whether the borrower will be able to fulfill its commitment and obligation. So for digital lending to be successful, I think for both players and consumer, I think we need to make sure that the target market understand why digital lending and what are the benefits of digital lending. That's the first point of both from the consumer as well as from the player's perspective. You need to understand that this is meant for everyone, but more catering to the people who have been left out of the formal channel. The reason why, because you have alternative way to assess the suitability or to look into the credit worthiness of these borrowers. At the same time, you are also providing opportunities to the lenders who are part of your digital lending platform is to diversify their investment, because traditionally, conventionally, there is no limit. You can invest in anything and everything, right? And you go with the diversification theory of portfolio, where you want to diversify and look into that. So for them, you need to look into why investment into some of these will be important. Now, once you have educated your borrowers about why digital lending will be successful, the second thing is to look into the outcome of these lending activities. I think it's always go with the branding and the successful stories of these operations, right? So if you look into some of the digital lending in the West, they always talk about the successful business ventures coming out of that, and they become the brand ambassador of those things. In the Malaysian market, we need to look into that, and especially we're talking about SME and countries like Malaysia, where SME is a MSME, you know, we include micro, it's like a backbone of the industry, right? At Monash, we work very closely with the SME association, and we are trying to train people, and we're trying to even train people on the digital lending aspect as well, why it will be beneficial for them, because we are trying to promote digital lending. The reason why, because you have alternative way, you have options available in order to look into that. The funding opportunities is there. Secondly, you do not have to go through so much of documentation. So the inherent or internal process of onboarding or KYC for these business entities or individuals need to be very robust from the player's perspective. And I think the generic guideline will come from the regulators like Security Commission in our case here in Malaysia, but at the same time the industry best practices need to be put forward, like what you are doing it, and there should be some level of promotion as well from the policy makers. For example, if you are taking loans, if you're taking funding through digital lending channels, you might get some tax exemptions, for example. So you need to promote. It will also help the digital lending platforms like yours to flourish, because end of the day, it's not fintech. As I mentioned earlier, there will be some fintech who are just looking for their own benefit to grow in valuation and able to sell it off. But there are many fintech, including Funding Society, for example, is to look into solving some of the community problems, right? So you need to understand the business model. The regulators as well as the policy makers should promote, and I think make it very competitive. You should give some type of, because in the startup phase you cannot be so restrictive, because you can't afford to be too costly, right? If you are yourself very costly, how you will be able to provide cheap lending or cost effective lending to the borrowers who are not into the high end category of the borrowers, right? You're looking at the MSMEs and all. So it is a coordinated effort. I always say, when talk about developing of a financial ecosystem, is all the three parties involved: the consumer, the players, and the policymaker, including the regulator. So it's a coordinated effort among all the three entities, which will help any ecosystem to develop and grow, and that will become the key aspect of digital lending space as well. I think a lot of awareness need to be done, especially for SMEs. I think a platform like yours should be conducting some type of seminar, or even inviting those people, and people like me or industry players, talking to them to explain the benefit of digital lending and how it is more convenient for them to approach a digital lending platform compared to a traditional conventional banks, and it will help them to reach that. So I think it's a coordinated effort to raise that awareness and promote this particular space in the market. Amirul?
Yeah, correct. I totally agree. Yeah, because those efforts, when combined, then it will bring us somewhere. We cannot be working alone. Working in silos, we cannot be achieving the objective that we want to meet, right? Okay, all right. Maybe my last question would be, because I think you have covered most of the questions I would like to ask already, especially on the strategies. But I just want to also tap onto investment side, because for funding societies, we work hand in hand with both the lending and also the investment segment, right? So I just want to know, what are your thoughts when it comes to digital investing, especially for the retail investors who want to invest in digital investment platforms that are available these days. So maybe you can share a little bit on the strategies, on the things that they need to know for them to be able to invest worry-free and also successfully.
I think at the moment the investors are looking at your your business and sustainability. Are you going to be sustainable in the long run or not? End of the day, the key aspiration of any investor in any sector is to look at that they are investing and they are able to get good return out of it, whether they get a stake or whether they are able to take the platform up to the IPO and they can get a good share out of the IPO. The second thing is also to look into your customer base, and it all comes down to what is your customer base, what type of information you are collected, and how useful is your big data. So the data is going to be the key thing in the fintech world, and including the digital lending space as well. What type of information you are collecting from your prospective borrowers, which are the companies which you are supporting, and as I mentioned earlier as well, it's all very well connected, Amirul, all this conversation, talking about embedded finance as well, because if you have an opportunity to use that information across different verticals, and it gives an opportunity to embed other financial services or other activities as part of it, that will be able to increase the value of the platform and will be able to give returns to the investors as well. So it all comes back to the business model. It comes back to the big data which you are collecting, your customer base, and it also looks into any uniqueness of your product or services what you are going to offer. At the moment, the biggest company or the platform which are driving the investors' confidence are not the one which are in the similar space, but those which are unique in that sense. Talking about alternative credit scoring, for example, once that type of system is developed and robust enough, that system can be used by a lot of companies like yours, for example, to able to identify the right customers and right borrowers and able to provide value to them. So having a value proposition of your product and services is very important for any fintech platform. The challenge with the fintech platform is that everybody thinks that their product is innovative, but if you just Google it, or if you look into your own verticals within the country, within region, within globally, you can find a lot. We said that we have 26,000 plus fintech startup across the world, and you can handful count the different segments, right? The key will be your payment and wallet and for example AI based solutions for that. So it's a very crowded space, in fact, with the investment coming up, and especially with the investment coming from the big techs or the big banks into the fintech world. I think everybody wants to cash on. So innovation, value proposition, and having a good customer base, and once you have that innovation and value proposition, you also we also need to understand what is the advantage you are going to provide to the customers, and make them aware of that. You don't have to compare with the others, but you talk about what is the value you bring to that, and that will be something which any fintech can take it forward for the long-term viability, and keep on innovating. I will again say that keep on innovating in that sense.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good advice. The key elements to having good traction to the company is first innovation, good value proposition, and also customer base. All right, yeah, I think we have come to an end. To the end of our session today, and I would like to thank you so much, Prof. Nafis, for joining us today, and thank you to everyone who are watching. To our speaker, Professor Nafis, for sharing with us many useful insights on financial technology. And do you have any last word that you'd like to say to our audience, Prof?
Yes, thank you, Amirul, for having me. I think this was a very good discussion. You have picked up on some of the key things. I hope the people who are listening to this conversation will benefit from the session. I always talk about fintech is not equivalent to crypto, and always when you're talking about fintech, look at the innovation and use for your own benefit. Do not speculate or do not abuse fintech solution. Try to utilize it for your financial benefit.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Prof. Nafis. Thank you to the audience for tuning in, and we hope to be able to conduct such session again in the future. And yeah, thank you again. Have a good night, and till next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.